I mentioned this previously, but my first Ys game was Ys VIII. I loved it so much that I've since made a point to explore the series further, including my review of last year's Memories of Celceta on PlayStation 4. While I wish I had reviewed Ys VIII when it was newer, I now find myself back in the throes of adventurism with the latest entry in the series, Ys IX, Monstrum Nox. Given my relatively recent fondness for the series, does Ys IX manage to surpass my admittedly lofty expectations? Let's find out. But first, please subscribe and click the bell to get notifications whenever I post new videos. I'll also have more content annotated at the end, including my dedicated Falcom playlist. Now let's get started. This PlayStation 4 game review is based on a physical retail copy of the game played on the PlayStation 5. Ys IX takes place after the events of Ys VII, making it the most modern entry in both the series and the timeline. As always, you assume the role of Adol Christin, renowned world adventurer. Adol's reputation precedes him, and upon arriving in the prison city of Balduc, he is promptly arrested in connection to the events of prior Ys games. Adol soon breaks out of prison, only to be cursed by the mysterious Aprilis and her gun that fires magic bullets. The curse turns Adol into a monstrum, a powerful being that resides on the precipice of the real world and a parallel dimension known as the Grimwald Nox. Together with the other monstrums, Adol is now tasked with forcing back the encroaching darkness. This is your prototypical Ys narrative outline. As with most entries in the series, Monstrum Nox is functionally a standalone story. However, 9 also takes advantage of being the most modern entry in the timeline, with multiple allusions and references to past titles. But these references are innocuous enough, and Ys IX should be as inviting to new players as it is to series veterans. The game moves very quickly through the opening acts, and some major narrative hooks are set upon completing Chapter 2, which is great. There are some slower points, but these don't bog down the experience. Instead, they exist to offer the player a chance to catch their breath between action segments. Compared to other RPGs, Ys IX doesn't have a lot of downtime, and I really enjoyed the 40 or so hours I spent with Monstrum Nox. As with all Falcom titles, Ys IX's visual quality depends on where you're coming from. For new players, Ys IX's graphics are not going to blow you away. It's not in the same league as the Final Fantasies, Dragon Quests, or Personas of the world. It is aided by the anime aesthetic though, which helps the graphics masquerade as more of an artistic choice rather than a visual limitation. For returning Ys fans and incoming Falcom players, Ys IX looks pretty good. The graphics have been touched up from Ys VIII in the same vein as Trails of Cold Steel 3's visual improvements over Trails of Cold Steel 2. Character models are a bit more detailed, and there are generally better textures throughout. The draw distance also seems to have been improved, though this could just be more noticeable due to the layout of the map in 9 versus the layout of the map in 8. I'm not as big a fan of Monstrum Nox's environmental color palette compared to Lacrimosa of Dana, but this is due to the primary locations of each game. Ys VIII takes place on an island, so there are a lot more natural colors and landmarks. Ys IX takes place in the prison city, so it's a lot more artificial and muted. Later chapters of 9 add some much needed color, but it obviously never reaches the same degree as what's seen in Ys VIII. This is a personal preference, but it might be worth keeping in mind for any like-minded individuals in the audience. There are some minor framerate issues too. Certain scenes will dip from 60 FPS to about 55 FPS. Luckily, these drops seem to be restricted to cutscenes and transitions rather than gameplay. During action sequences, the frame rate stays at a pretty steady 60 FPS. So again, as with most of Falcom's recent titles, the graphics and performance are nothing to write home about. Fans will surely welcome the graphical improvements, while new players might not be impressed at all. At the very least, I don't think Ys IX looks bad no matter where you're coming from. The visuals are fine if unremarkable, and the performance is reliable. For the audio, I think the game's music is great. Ys VIII had a great soundtrack, but Ys IX's score is no slouch either, so it's really a toss-up between which one you prefer. Have a listen. The voice acting is also quite good. English and Japanese are both present, and I like both for different reasons. Ultimately, I went with Japanese because that's how I played the other Ys games. Here's an early scene for you to compare.
ほう、わめくことなく魔弾の呪いを受け入れるとは、その姿。さしずめ、赤の王といったところか。驚くのも無理はない。まずは心を落ち着けて感じるがいい。
Impressive. You've assimilated with the curse without so much as a squeal. Your new form deserves a proper name. How about the Crimson King? I did. Now you must calm yourself and fully embrace it.
On a side note, I found the backing music to be a bit loud compared to the voice acting volume. Not a major issue since you can tweak these settings in-game, but perhaps another thing to be aware of if and when you dive in.
It seems I've arrived too late. It seems I've arrived too late.
As a whole, I like the game's sound well enough. The music is good, the voice acting is good in both languages, and what few problems exist, like the mixing, were simple enough to remediate once I tweaked a couple of in-game settings. Gameplay is where Falcom titles really tend to shine. Ys IX is an action JRPG much like its recent predecessors, and is designed to be quick and easy to pick up and play. You have your basic attack, which you can mash to perform simple combos. Basic attacks fill up the skill meter, and skill attacks are performed by holding R1 and pushing any of the face buttons. L1 is the dodge roll, and performing a dodge at the last second will enable a flash move, a limited bullet time sequence that not only allows for greater attack volume, but also increases the skill meter yield per attack. There's also a flash guard performed by hitting R1 at the correct time, but I only ever used flash guard on accident, preferring flash move for its greater fluidity. There's also the boost meter, which fills up as you continue attacking and using skills. Once the meter is full, holding R1 and pushing L1 engages Boost Mode, a temporary stat buffing mode with increased maneuverability. Finally, there are extra skills, which are the ultimate attacks. During Boost Mode, holding R1 and pushing L1 again will perform an extra skill, which can deal copious damage to nearby enemies. Each monstrum additionally comes with a gift ability. Adol's gift, the Crimson Line, doubles as a combat skill. By locking onto an opponent with triangle and then pushing R2, Adol can zip to the locked-on enemy's position and immediately begin attacking. This further expedites the pacing of combat, making everything much more fluid and engaging. Every time you win a standard battle, the Nox meter in the top left-hand corner begins to fill. Upon reaching 100%, you may begin a Grimwald Nox battle. These Grimwald Nox battles are akin to the Horde battles from Ys VIII. It all feels so quick and responsive, though I do think Falcom went a bit too heavy on the sheer volume of Nox battles. Outside of combat, you can explore this large contiguous city map. Let's start with the good. I really like that Balduke is mostly devoid of loading zones. You can just run from one district to the next, which is great because going screen to screen with every district transition would be suffocating to the free-flowing movement. I especially like how gaining new gifts allows you to retread previous areas and find new items and secrets. The greater emphasis on verticality also makes gifts imperative to the later chapters. But there are some missteps. The city itself feels pretty empty, with very few NPCs relative to the city's expansiveness. And new areas are not blocked off organically from the player. It's not like there's a blockade of knights preventing the party from going in, nor are the adjacent districts inaccessible to the player due to not having the correct gifts to reach the district. Ys IX literally just erects magical walls to prevent players from sequence breaking the game. It's not really a clever way to bar players from advanced areas, more so than a mechanical way. But these details seem more like missed opportunities rather than overt problems. Aside from that, it's pretty amazing how fresh the Ys games still feel. The gameplay is as responsive and novel as ever, and the new additions only serve to improve Monstrum Nox's overall scope. I don't think 9 is better than 8, but that's less a knock on 9 and more a compliment to 8. Lacrimosa of Dana is definitely a much tighter game. Everything exists with a defined purpose in 8, and it works to the game's overall benefit. Comparatively, 9 recycles features from 8 in a way that feels less organic and nuanced. Again, it's one of those function over form implementations. Credit where credit is due though, 9 obviously tries to do a few different things with the series, and it mostly succeeds, with its few failings being minor at best. On its own merits, Monstrum Nox is a fantastic entry in the Ys chronology, and an easy recommendation for any and all prospective players. Exploring the Ys games these past few years has been immensely rewarding. The stories of Adol Christin and his wayfaring adventures are fast-paced, engaging, and more wonderfully inviting than the series' numeration may suggest at a glance. Ys is exactly the kind of palate cleanser that JRPG fans may need from time to time, and Ys 9 is no exception. The gameplay has been expanded, the story has a lot of intrigue, the design is good with mostly successful experimentations, and it knows not to overstay its welcome. A lean, solid entry in a series full of the same, this game is definitely worth your attention, whether you're a longtime fan or a curious onlooker. Ys 9, Monstrum Nox, earns a 9 out of 10. Once again, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get updates whenever I post new content, and check out my other Falcom videos annotated on screen. Thanks!